Welcome to the Dallas Duo podcast,
your weekly wellness coffee date.
We're friends in Dallas, always looking for the best ways to optimize our health
and have fun along the way.
Welcome to a special Dallas Duo mini-series recorded live at Witness Wellness 2025, the 4th Annual Women's Health Summit in Dallas. Over the course of the day, I'll be sitting down with panel speakers and experts immediately after their sessions to dive deeper into the ideas they just shared.
I created Witness Wellness as a summit for real talk, real experts, and real solutions, covering the topics women often don't get to talk about: hormones, metabolism, mental load, fitness, and more. Whether you're in the room with us today at the slate or listening later, these mini episodes are your backstage pass to actionable insights and honest conversations. Let's jump in to today's guest in session.
Today's guests are Lillian Medhus and Elise Clark. Welcome to the podcast, ladies. Lillian is a women's health nurse practitioner dedicated to empowering women in managing their sexual wellness, hormone health, and gynecologic care. With extensive training and experience, she provides comprehensive and compassionate care tailored to each patient's unique needs and experiences. Elise is a nurse practitioner specializing in functional medicine, focusing on hormone optimization, thyroid health, gut health, and overall wellness. She is known for her expertise in managing conditions like Hashimoto's, PCOS, perimenopause, and menopause, as well as supporting women during the postpartum period. Elise offers personalized care through telemedicine services in Texas and Colorado, providing customized treatment plans to help patients achieve a more functional lifestyle. We are so excited to have you both on. So you just spoke on the panel today. And so can you tell us what your topic was that you spoke on today?
Yeah, we talked a lot about perimenopause and what that means, and mostly with symptoms to watch out for and how to kind of advocate for yourself a little bit if you feel like that's something that you're struggling with and you haven't quite gotten the answers that you were looking for.
Yes. Well, I feel like this is like my world lately. So I am extra excited to talk to y'all. I'm 45. And so I feel like for the last 5 years has been such a journey of just learning and wondering, like, why isn't this talked about more and taught as well? And so I am definitely on that journey. And would you say that one of the myths is that it starts later, where really, you can recognize symptoms? At what age are people finding now?
Oftentimes, I would say, most common is probably early 40s, but many women experience even from mid 30s. And then I always want to do a little shout out because I see a lot of patients who have endometriosis, and a lot of those patients have surgical menopause, meaning they've had their ovaries removed, and they get forgotten in this discussion too. So if you've had your ovaries removed at any age, that also deserves treatment.
What were some key points that you presented today that you felt really resonated well with the audience?
I think what symptoms to watch for, and also if your doctor tells you that things look normal on lab work, that doesn't mean you're not in perimenopause. Because really it's just that phase leading up to menopause. It can last 5, 10 plus years. And it's really not a clearly defined stage of our lives. So it's more based on what symptoms you're experiencing. And I always tell people it's when your hormones start to shift, not necessarily go away completely. Close to 40 and beyond, you're making less of certain hormones and you can still have symptoms because of that. So hot flashes, sweats, those are fairly common ones. I would say a lot of people initially come to me and they just say, Lillian said, I just don't really feel like myself anymore. I hear a lot of brain fog, irritability, worsening PMS. And so I kind of jokingly say, if you think you're in perimenopause, you probably are. If you're over the age of 35 and you're experiencing those, it's worth talking to someone about potential options, because sometimes it's lifestyle, stress, sleep, those kind of things. But if you're really pretty miserable, you probably need some hormone support as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is really worth mentioning some of those less common side effects, because when I first started learning about this, it was just all about like, oh, are you having night sweats yet or hot flashes? But it's so much more than that, and so much more than people even recognize. It's very easy to just write it off as you're busy, you have a lot on your plate, you might feel, stressed or not sleeping enough. And it's easy to chalk up, what you're feeling to those symptoms and not seek help right away. The sooner that you can get some support, the better.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what the evidence says too, actually. The
Really?
earlier in the transition that you start hormone therapy, the more prevention you get from it, the more benefit you get from it. So any age is okay, but yeah, the earlier you can get support, the better.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're starting to see people more in their mid to late 30s come in for support? Now, just because I feel like lately, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like lately it's been in the news, in the media a little
Yeah.
bit more. There's been some books that have come out that are, more educational. So maybe people are starting to see the signs earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say the internet is like this double-edged sword, right? I
Yeah.
think it's great
No,
because
100%.
there's more recognition of it, but you have to still watch who you're taking advice from. But you
Yeah.
are right. There's been a couple of doctors that have grown really good Instagram followings,
Mhm.
and they're great advocates for this, and there's been some really good books.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would say women are necessarily starting to go through it earlier. I think
Mhm.
we're just starting to pay attention to women more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a
Yeah.
little more aware. What would you say are some, myths or misconceptions about perimenopause?
I think one of the big ones is that you have to have hot flashes. So I think it's about 60% of women will ever experience hot flashes.
wow.
So you likely do have symptoms if you're over the age of 35. But a lot of times people think that that is the symptom. And if you're not experiencing it yet, you're not in perimenopause.
Yeah, the symptoms can be really nuanced. And like I said, one of the biggest ones I hear is people are just really irritable.
Mhm.
They feel like their patience is really thin, but their life hasn't changed. It's like their stress is worse, and they just feel like they can't handle the day to day. They're more overwhelmed, they're more
Mhm.
irritated, they're more overstimulated. Now, nothing changed. What's going
Yeah.
on? And sometimes that can be those hormone shifts, and it's really life changing for people
Yeah.
if they get the right.
Well, that was me. It just kind of hit me like all of a sudden I was like, I feel like I have a lot less patience with things that normally would not bother me. Kind of didn't feel like myself, felt myself even more like procrastinating more than usual. And so it was just those little things. And I honestly just started like making a little list, keeping a note of just like what I was feeling and even when. And I think that can be helpful, just
Yeah,
to start
tracking things.
tracking those symptoms. Are there any other things that you feel like could be helpful to women if they start to feel like maybe this is starting to happen, other things that they can do so that when they go to their doctor, they feel like not that they're providing evidence, but that they can fully explain what they're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think one thing in addition to tracking is like tracking if these things are happening at certain points in your cycle,
Hmm.
like where it's getting more significant the week before your period. That
Yeah.
means something.
Okay.
Maybe your progesterone isn't where it should be at that point in your cycle. So kind of keeping an eye on where these things are happening. And unfortunately, women often do have to advocate for themselves if you're not coming to a menopause provider. Keeping track even too of like, okay, I've tried sleep hygiene and I've tried exercise and I've tried these things.
Mm.
But I think something deeper is going on.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is coming in with these are clear symptoms I'm having, and then advocating for yourself. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of doctors just aren't as well versed in the
Hmm.
perimenopause phase. And so they might still think, oh, you have to wait till you're fully menopausal, meaning I don't have periods anymore to do something. And that's simply not true. So there's no need to suffer. As women, we over time kind of get used to not feeling as good. We're like, oh, well, I don't feel as good as I did 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
there's all these explanations as to why. And, having kids and having a job and all that doesn't mean you need to be tired. It doesn't mean you need to feel
Yeah.
bad. It's not always that you have too much on your plate. It's that your body is just aging. And
Yeah.
that's a natural thing, but we can really support it better so that it works well for you longer.
I find that like you really have to take care of yourself in different ways as you get older. And that's something I think that you don't realize maybe when you're in your 20s and 30s. You think like, I'm fine, like I know what to do
Yeah.
for myself. But I think there's more you can do as you
Yeah.
get older because you want to still continue to function in a, healthy, energetic way. If someone is thinking they might need to see a perimenopause or menopause provider, what kind of advice would you give someone who's looking if they're thinking like, I don't think my OB-GYN is like covering this, or I don't think they specialize in this area? How do you recommend someone to go about that?
Well, what I said earlier is when they treat people for perimenopause, that in and of itself can tell you a lot. So many, maybe like old school type providers don't even necessarily believe in perimenopause or think
Yeah.
that it's something that needs to be
Mhm.
treated. So just their reaction to asking how often they treat perimenopause can be helpful.
That'd be very telling, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, looking on people's websites, if you're thinking about seeing someone, like, do they specifically say that they treat perimenopause, menopause, not just hormone issues?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, because there's all kinds of certifications, et cetera, that writers can get, but those
Yeah.
don't always mean that they're doing it day to day.
Mhm.
So I think just asking that question is really important of how often are you seeing women in perimenopause and menopause? Is that your bread and butter? Or is it just a one-off?
Oh.
Because it is kind of its own specialty now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Really, for those of us
which is
that do,
great.
we love
Exactly. No, that's wonderful. Also, I was wondering, and this is just because, I'm in this phase of life, my friends are in this phase of life. Are there any like resources you would recommend to be able to explain this in a better way to your husband or your partner? Because I feel like, I talk to my husband about all the time and he wants to know like what's going on, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. But I feel like it's hard to explain sometimes and there's not enough resources for that. Is there anything you would recommend?
Well, there's an Instagram that I really like by a marriage
Mhm.
and family therapist called Marriage and Perimenopause. So I'll
Okay.
give them a shout out. She talks a lot about how to navigate the emotional effects in your marriage of
Okay.
perimenopause. That can be really helpful.
there are several doctors who present really good information, very accurate, evidence-based, and I feel like that's an easy way to share that with a spouse of like,
Okay.
"Hey, here's a quick little reel
Yes.
about the symptoms I'm going through, why it's happening, and then maybe what I need to be doing about it." Kelly Casperson is one
Oh,
the top of
yes.
my head that I do know.
She's great.
Yeah, I think she's a urologist. And
Yes.
she's really great with talking about the evidence behind it and some of the symptoms.
Yeah, I think just a nice Instagram video that you can just
Yeah.
like
Yes,
quickly
exactly.
send, be like, listen to this. And it's like just a few minutes,
Yeah.
I think is sometimes the most helpful. I wanted to back up a little bit because I really want people to hear that perimenopause is, I don't want to say diagnosed, but it's more based on like the symptoms you're feeling and not necessarily lab work, which I think is a misconception. Sometimes people think like your labs have or your hormones have to be at a certain level and you have to be tested. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I call perimenopause the zone of chaos. Your hormones are like this, right? So if you do one random lab test, like you ask your provider and they say, okay, we'll test your hormones, and it happens to be on this day, they're
Yeah.
going to tell you everything is normal. But what that doesn't show is trends over time or even tomorrow, your hormones could be completely different than they are today. So, yes, it's nice to have a baseline, but we do it at a certain point in your cycle and also track your symptoms over time because those speak more than labs. For example, like estrogen when you're premenopausal can be between 40 and 500, maybe even higher. So we don't know where you would feel your best or where your levels were a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I think a lot of in the more obese setting, what they're looking at are probably the brain signals called FSH and LH that
Hmm.
signal your ovaries to make estrogen and progesterone. And when we classify someone as menopausal, meaning their periods are actually slowing down, their estrogen is actually slowing down, their brain signals will actually be really high because their body isn't feeding the brain back with these hormones to shut them
Mm.
off. And so a lot of OBs will go on that standard while your FSH, LH brain signals are still nice and low. And while that is true to a certain extent, your hormones just might not be cycling in the right pattern anymore. Your progesterone might not be getting as high as it used to. So, again, there's a lot of nuance even with us checking lab values
Mhm.
at the right part of your cycle. It still doesn't mean that you are or you aren't. We go based on symptom.
Well, is there any kind of key takeaway or something that people who are listening can do like tomorrow, to better their health or to just become more aware of perimenopause and what to look for?
Well, I'll give a plug that I give to my patients often that I think is a myth too. I believe, I'll say because of medical misogyny, that we've been taught to fear hormones, but especially estrogen.
Mhm.
So many people come to me afraid of estrogen. And so I think even just starting to learn about the function of estrogen in the body, how it protects you from disease long term, and start to kind of deconstruct that idea that we should be afraid of a hormone that our body creates.
I think
Yeah.
educating yourself, honestly, whether that's through Instagram or a book. I really like the
Yeah.
book Estrogen Matters. It presents really well to patients the evidence of the safety behind hormones. And
Mhm.
if you have even an inkling that like you might need some hormone support, understanding a little bit more about them up front can be really helpful. And then also just if you're feeling like you need more support starting that search, maybe I need to find a provider, putting some calls out. A lot of places will do discovery calls where
Okay.
if you want to potentially see a provider, and they'll talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes to see if it's the right fit. And I would do that until you find the person that you feel like you're going to fit with.
Okay. No, that's really great advice. As far as estrogen goes, do you want to talk a little bit about like the different types or how you would use it when you start that journey?
Sure. So, the two kind of major things to know is there's systemic hormones and there's vaginal hormones. Vaginal hormones replace a hormone only in your vagina or your vulva where you put it. It helps with things like urinary incontinence, yeast infection, pain with sex, that kind of thing. Safe for pretty much anybody and can be used kind of at any point in life. Systemic estrogen, on the other hand, is amazing, but it does have a little more caveats in its use and who is the right candidate for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're trying to get systemic estrogen, meaning it's
Mhm.
going to get in your bloodstream and travel throughout your whole body, there's creams, there's patches, there's pills, there's lots of different options. And depending on your personal history and other health issues that you might have, that's how we determine the best form for you.
Okay. Very good to know. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to share with our listeners today? Anything from your panel? I'm trying to think. Did you?
Well, I think progesterone is an underrated hormone. That's
Yeah.
usually what we treat perimenopause with before estrogen.
Okay.
I think estrogen gets all the hype, it gets all the news coverage.
Mhm.
But progesterone can be used very safely by itself throughout perimenopause till your periods really start to die off. So a lot of times our hormone treatment is starting with progesterone and then adding an estrogen whenever your ovaries really stop working.
Mm.
Now, that would be the systemic version. Prior to that, we use vaginal estrogen a lot.
Okay. Now that's a really great point because that's personally like that's where I started was with the progesterone and I feel like it did really help. Can you quickly explain some of the benefits of progesterone? Like what symptoms does it help with?
All of them.
All of them, yeah.
It's my personal favorite.
Yes.
It really helps with calming the body. It helps you with sleep cycle. It helps
Yeah.
you with night sweats. It can help even with things like libido and vaginal dryness. But it also helps with something called GABA in the
Okay.
brain, which is a neurotransmitter. It upregulates the receptors for that neurotransmitter that makes us feel really calm and cool and collected. So if we're talking about the main symptoms of perimenopause being irritability and PMS and mood changes, the
Yeah.
progesterone just kind of takes the edge off. And I use it a lot for even younger women, just for things like PMS too.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of
progesterone is
yes, very good experience with it. No, 100%. Okay, well, please share where listeners can find you online and on social media.
Yeah, so I have a small boutique practice in DFW, and I see patients online in telehealth in Texas and several other states. So you can look at Aspire Women's Wellness on Instagram and aspirewomenswellness.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I just practice under my name, Elise Clark. My Instagram is Elise Clark FNP, which stands for Family Nurse Practitioner. And then you can find my website through there. I work solo. I do telemedicine in Texas and Colorado, and then I'm also co-owner of a larger functional collective with other providers called Evergreen Functional Collective.
Okay.
So that
Awesome.
Instagram is Evergreen Functional. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us and just talking about this very timely and very important topic. And I'm sure everyone has learned so much from you today. So thank you so much. And we hope to have you back sometime when Whitney is with me. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this Witness Wellness mini episode with the Dallas Duo podcast. A big thanks to all the speakers for sharing their expertise and journeys. Make sure to check out their work and follow them on their Instagram, website, and any other resources provided.
Be sure to catch more interviews as we bring you even deeper insights from this summit. If you're listening later, check out the full Witness Wellness lineup and revisit the sessions you missed. Thanks for being a part of our community of women committed to real wellness. Until next time.